So I'm again cursed by the Smith Group's use of the Myriad Pro condensed font. This would have looked better with Myriad Pro. But anyway, so we're doing some tech issues.
Not being it.
So my name is Greg Mella. I'm going to talk about the Brock Environmental Center, which is actually in construction documents. And I have a deadline to the end of May to produce the construction documents. I don't know how long the permitting and regulatory process is going to be, but the foundation is hoping to move into this new center next summer. So it's pretty far along the project, and I think I've got a couple of battle scars to talk about, and have learned an enormous amount just in the past year working on this project. One of my claims to fame is the Upper Star, who's the project architect for the Philip Merrill Environmental Center for the foundation, which achieved the platinum. It was the first platinum project in the world. And I thought, my God, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, how lucky I am. And I truly am blessed because I have twice-in-a-lifetime opportunity, an opportunity to work for the same client, again, at the very bottom of the bay in Virginia Beach. And the client's goals are the exact same goals that they were in 1998, which was to do the greenest building possible. What's interesting to me is that in 1998, that was the platinum, and here we are 12 years later. It's true sustainability, regenerative design, and ultimately the Living Building Challenge. The site is similar in that it's bayfront. This is a slightly more coastal site in Virginia Beach, and I think one of the things to point out is that the graphic on the right shows the 120-acre site that this building sits on. All of it, virtually all of it, is within the floodplain. That kind of medium blue color is the floodplain. And for those who were in the presentation this morning, talking about transects and the requirement not to build within the floodplain, there is an exception for an organization whose mission is really focused on environmental restoration, and whose, in this case, the foundations, with a lot of what they do is just take kids to the site, learn about the bay, learn about the important role wetlands play within the bay as a filter. So, not your typical Living Building Challenge site. And the site is, as I said, 120 acres of previously disturbed land. It was a dredging site. The Army Corps would dredge out Crab Creek and some of the adjacent waterways and dump the spoils on the site. I'm going to have to go really quickly. As always, anyone who's seen me talk, I have an hour presentation. I'm going to give you 20 minutes. So I'm going to take my watch off and look at it and restrain myself from going into too much depth. But the image on the upper right is of the site. The site used to be more wetlands, and now it's more salt marsh and meadow. Because of all the dredge fill, and we are looking at a natural succession of the site to not necessarily restore to what it was, but to turn it back into native ecosystems. Program is a 10,000, a little slightly over 10,000 square foot building that consists of an office building for the foundation, as well as some of their partner environmental organizations, as well as a kind of community center with a large meeting room that serves both the foundation as well as other environmentally centered groups, as well as just a local community center. And we started the project just about a year and a half, 13, 14 months ago. Really very lucky to have started by attending the Living Futures conference last year, starting out in Seattle and then working our way down to Portland. Getting to tour the Berkeley School, the Bullitt Center, and then the Oregon Sustainability Center, meet with the architects, come in there really and learning a ton. We came into the tours thinking the hardest part about this project was going to be the net zero energy piece. We left there quickly realizing that the red list was going to be a very challenging aspect of the project. And we have the best design advisory group in the world working with us from the onset. Our initial green charrettes included Rob Watson, the father of LEED, Beth Heider, the chair of the U.S. Green Building Council, and Jason McLennan, the creator of the Living building challenge. So we're very lucky to have them come tour the site and help us brainstorm and come up with some out-of-the-box ideas. I think the biggest piece that came out of that was our team wrestling with how do you build within the floodplain on an environmentally sensitive site, and really envisioning the kind of the next scale of your project, the ecological function that the site did serve in filtering stormwater. The biggest outcome was that it's okay to build a living building challenge in the floodplain on the site, but we can't have any parking on the site. And that was a challenge because the owner in Hampton Roads has a more suburban mentality. Typically you park right in front of the building, you walk up some steps and you're at the building. So here we put all the parking for the building in the existing community and developed a series of footpaths so that you're basically approaching this building on foot, with the exception being providing ADA spaces for disability. I mean, basically the only pieces of building that are on the site are ones that are directly connected to the educational mission that really needs to be on this important piece of land. And as such, really, that started to inform the design. You know, we knew it was going to be a green building, so it should be an east-west oriented bar, typically good rule of thumb for passive design. That combined with the fact that these paths and the connection to the local community are all coming from the northwest portion of the site, we've developed this basic partie. A one-story building will maximize roof area, promotes cross ventilation, doesn't block neighbors' views, and then really kind of make a head and a tail, a kind of very prominent portion to the building to the west that would be a signature element, and then a very long extruded bar to basically has the more pragmatic functions of the building. And parking off site, and ultimately that partie evolved into this design. The entire building is raised about 10 feet off the ground because of the floodplain. There could be, within the 100-year period, as much as 2 feet of water on the site. We have looked at climate change and sea level rise. There's potential for that to increase by an additional 3 feet. So we would have had to raise the building about 6 feet off the ground. And you're that close, you might as well just raise it up a little bit more so that you can habitate underneath the building as well. And ultimately, this is a fairly recent rendering of the building. You can see that iconic element when you approach the building from the northwest. That is the conference center, the community space within the building. Come up the ramp into the lobby, and then the remainder of the building is housed within the bar. This is the floor plan. You can see there's a slight curve to the building, slightly curving to the east to accept more morning sun to keep the building up during the cool months. Then a continuous porch along the south, not unlike the Merrill Center. And then just the feature of what we call the dog trot, that piece, that break in the length of the bar in the middle, a kind of vernacular device to promote passive ventilation through the building. So getting to net zero energy, you saw slides like this morning talking about the Bullet Center, really getting to an energy budget that was roughly about 200 MMBTU on an annual basis. That was our target. A lot of the examples we saw from the Northwest have a slightly easier climate in terms of being able to rely on natural ventilation for a greater portion of the year. This is very hot, humid climate. But we set that goal fairly early, and that also influenced our sizing of renewables. We're using a combination of wind and photovoltaics for the project, kind of diversifying your portfolio, so to speak. In case it's a really cloudy year, we hopefully rely on the wind and vice versa. So effectively, and very rarely, I don't know if I'll ever work on a project where wind turbines are viable, but this coastal nature of the site, really, there's just a very consistent, very uniform in terms of direction, wind speed on the site that did make wind turbines a little bit more viable than typically. Sun shading, I think one of the big lessons learned from the Merrill Center is that we overglaze that building. We tried too much to let winter light in. recognizing there are 70 degrees days in the winter more often than not, although it's been a cold winter this year. But and now with passive house level certification standards, and we're looking at insulation levels. We're using, I'll talk more about our insulation in a bit, but very, very high levels of insulation, so that you really don't need to rely on the sun to heat the building in the winter. Just your people, lights, and equipment inside can often provide all of your heating. So we size the portion of this facade basically to not only let summer sun out, but also winter sun out for the most part. But we wanted the microclimate inside the porch so that